everyone. This is Michelle Gramoglia, the President and CEO here at Woodland Pond. This is my weekly address for Tuesday. Today, believe it or not, is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. I've got quite a few items from the rumor mill and suggestion box from the long weekend, so I'm very excited about that. We'll get to those things in a moment. I wanted to just quickly go through a few calendar items and mention a couple of things that we have in the works. So I don't know how everybody else feels, but by the time September hits and we come in after Labor Day weekend, I'm always excited to kind of get back into a new routine or an old routine. The summer, although I enjoy it, always feels a little bit disconnected for me from a work perspective because people are on vacation and maybe, some of the more in earnest projects that we typically do kind of go on the back burner a little bit. And so I thought I would take the opportunity to kind of just bring everybody back to center in terms of the nuts and bolts of the community and sort of maybe plant that seed that now is a great time for you to get involved. We've got lots of people that participate in numerous things, but we also have many residents that don't necessarily come to some of the committees or the interest groups, maybe even thinking about it. Certainly you've got opinions on things. The way your opinions and your feedback get to the folks that make the changes, whether it be the residence council, the executive team, the board, the way that information comes to us generally comes through primarily the committees, but in some cases the interest groups. It's a great way for you to get involved, have your concerns or suggestions voiced, get some accountability held there. And it's really important for people to think about becoming involved, whether it be in physical person or in writing somehow, because everyone here does have the ability to sort of sway and impact how we deal with things on a day-to-day basis. So specifically to this week, and we're already halfway through the day on Tuesday, but if we look at the rest of this week, there's some fantastic opportunities available to all residents. You don't need to just live in independent living. For example, Physical Plant Committee is at 10 a.m. tomorrow in the classroom, and all of these meetings are open to everyone. Even if they're in a small room, you should never feel like you cannot attend. Our committee meetings are open unless for some reason there needs to be an executive session. But physical plant related or facilities issues impact everyone on campus. That meeting is at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Please join. There is a finance review committee meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the art studio. And of course, finances and financial health of this community impact every single person here, whether it be a resident, a staff member, just everyone here is impacted by finance and has a vested interest in understanding what's going on. So attend the meetings, 1 o'clock in the art studio tomorrow. On Thursday, the Art and Decor Committee has a meeting at 1. So you're not really sure, what does the Art and Decor Committee do? What is their responsibility? Maybe want to talk about some suggestions that you might have or some observations. That's in the art studio at 1 on Thursday. Council Connections, we are interviewing Sue Close, who is the manager of activities for the health center. That's going to be taking place in the PAC on Thursday at 2 p.m. This is a great interview style way to get to know some of the behind the scenes folks at Woodland Ponds, maybe some of the folks that you see more regularly, but maybe to get to know them on a little bit of a different basis. And there is a Q&A section in there. On Friday, there will be a time of remembrance for Rhoda Horowitz. I don't usually talk about those on these addresses, but if we communicate one way, I feel like we should communicate in all of the ways because we really want folks to become engaged and to understand what's going on. So if you're interested in attending the time of remembrance for Rhoda Horowitz at 12:30 p.m. in the PAC, these are completely optional, and this is something that we've done for loved ones and families for many years. Oftentimes, when a resident has been here for a very long time, or even maybe a shorter time, the family decides that the best place to have a memorial or a remembrance is here at the community because we have space and a lot of your late in life friends and connections have been made here at Woodland Pond. We're always happy to facilitate. Every single one's a little bit different. Sometimes folks get up and tell stories. Sometimes there are slideshows. It really runs the gamut, but it is an option available that I know that many people have really appreciated the chance to take advantage of. And then at 2 p.m., Mel Ocean will be doing a talk on the universe in the classroom at 2. There are lots of other things on the calendar too, but this is just to kind of give you a sense of some of the really foundational kinds of things that you can attend and participate in this week. And I hope you do keep an eye on your Woodland Life newsletters, whether you're in independent living or any level of care in the community. Everyone does have a newsletter with their activities outlined. Going through a few other things, I want to thank and sort of plug the handbook review ad hoc committee that is now well underway. I got lots of emails over the weekend from the various members of that ad hoc task force that will be sort of leading the charge on making proposed revisions to the handbook. I would like to thank Fred Walensky for offering to chair that. As we sort of realized when we were sitting in the room together last week, there's a lot to do. I have asked the task force to really focus on some of the more actively discussed policies that we have. And we went through the table of contents and really identified those that seem to get the most airtime among residents, whether it be the pet policy, the solicitation policy, the political discussion policy. And I could tell just from the feedback in the room, I think we had maybe 7 residents there and myself, there's going to be a very engaged review on this handbook and these policies. And as we discussed, obviously things that are contractually obligated or required by building code or things like that, there's not really much purpose in spending a lot of time on those kinds of things because those are dictated by a contract or a law or a regulation. Where we really want the juice and the meat of this to be working and the work to be done is on those things that we control independently here at the community, and sort of tells the story about the type of community that we want to be. We've got folks that, sort of grudgingly accept that we have a handbook and policies. And then we've got others that understand that, with communities, there do need to be some expectations set, some policies and procedures, because it also, not only does it set the expectations of what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis, but it also is a tool for us as a leadership team to help to navigate challenges to those policies and procedures as they may arise, or to help you navigate a situation that you might be facing. So when we're all sort of playing with the same set of rules, then it's easier for us to say, okay, I can understand why Woodland Pond is, for example, asking me not to smoke my cigarettes here. Please look at your handbook. This is a beautiful time to go outside, open your windows, open that book up, look at the table of contents, look at those policies that are of interest to you. You can mark up proposed edits or make questions, put them together. You can leave them at concierge for the committee, and we will forward those to the committee members for their consideration. But we are giving you an opportunity through your peers to have a voice here, even if you're not on the task force, and we are imploring you to participate in that process. I don't know how other communities handle these kinds of things, but here at Woodland Pond, we want the feedback, we want the input, we want the questions to be asked, because at the end of the day, unless something is bound by contract or law, that everything else here should be what we want it to be. So let's use our voices on that. We are collating additional forms that came in for the capital campaign over the weekend. I had a look at them this morning. We're getting there. I think we're missing a couple though that are instrumental. And there were 2 folks, as I had said in the Chanticleer over the weekend, there were 2 responses in the July survey of folks that had indicated that they would be committing in excess of $1 million each. Those forms have not been turned in yet. And it's certainly possible that those people changed their minds, maybe thought that maybe this was not something that should be relied on, and that's perfectly fine. If we do receive those forms, I'm sure we'll take things through the end of the week as we talk about where to go from here. We'll be well in excess of the commitment that we need. But we are committed to that if we do not get to 70% of the total cost, we will not be moving forward. We are going to be discussing this further. We certainly have a very good chunk of change, and there may be an opportunity for us to begin some of the work. It's going to be a discussion to have with the construction manager. I think I had referenced at the last weekly address, or maybe the one before, that the costs have come in extremely favorably. So it's not a $7 million price tag anymore. The construction manager did a fantastic job of getting bids on this. So we're looking at a denominator that's a little bit different. So we are still working on this, but if you are one of those two that did indicate that level of commitment, and you can please get that form in, ideally today, to concierge, that would be greatly appreciated, so we have a little bit more certainty as to where we're going to go here. One other thing to mark on your calendars before I move on to rumor mill and suggestion box. Please do mark your calendars. Hopefully you've seen your newsletter at this point, but we are going to be having a Sweet 16 celebration. We like to have, a larger party in the month of our birth, which was September. And this year we actually have the opportunity to have our Sweet 16 party on our actual birthday, which is September 25th, also my birthday, coincidentally. And a couple of other residents also share that birthday. But we're turning 16, time to have a party. We've got some fun things planned for that, and more details will be coming out as we get closer to this 25th of September. All right, now into rumor mill and suggestion box, and these are in no particular order. The first indicates, is it a rumor or true that rumor mill notes will no longer be read unless there's a signature on each? Rumors/opinions should not be seriously considered because the writer does not have the courage of his or her opinion. I think that's more of a statement than a question. And then the reader could be spreading false information or malicious lies. So nothing has changed in terms of how I will be treating these rumor mills or suggestions until or unless it becomes a problem. The only time that I do not share something in the box is if there is something identifying and it's an attack on a neighbor, for example. So let's say I don't like the way that this person parks their car and it's such and such's name. I would never, ever read that and read a name or give anything that says, that they drive a hot pink Cadillac, which would give it away. The way I handle things that I think are probably either tongue-in-cheek or malicious or false, as long as there's no identifying information, I read those. And I leave it up to you to determine the validity of what you think is being said. Sometimes you will hear me say, I can't tell if this is a joke, or I think this might be a joke, or I think that this is in jest. Sometimes I don't know. It's not really up to me to try to figure that out. I am just focused on making sure that something that can be considered to be a personal attack is not coming through. So I do not have any intention to censor any of these. And as long as I'm sitting in this seat doing these addresses, until or unless we have a problem with this, then I'm going to continue to be completely forthcoming with what goes into those boxes. Since marketing did the declutter workshop, how about having a free store or Goodwill truck come on site? I think that's a fabulous idea. We generally have always done a larger free store in addition to the individual ones. We've typically solicited anyone that wants to divest of items in a free store. We typically do it in the fall. And that actually goes back to the origin story of the free stores. And if you will humor me for a moment, I will tell you the origin story for the free stores. How those came to be was, I would say, maybe 12 years ago, maybe more, given that we're going to be 16. But soon after I became first the executive director and then the president and CEO, that also coincided with the time of my family's life cycle, where my children were beginning to outgrow certain things, toys, books, clothing. And it was really sort of gut-wrenching to me to think that these things were going to either just go in the trash, which I didn't like from a sustainability perspective, or that I was going to have to cart them off to sort of a random Goodwill. I wasn't going to necessarily know that they were going to go to a good home. I didn't really have confidence that the items there wouldn't just get chucked eventually anyway. And so in chatting with a couple of my colleagues here that were sort of in the same place in their family households, we decided to have our very first free store. And we did it in November. And then it became an annual thing every November for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years until we started making it part of the move out process. And now that's an option, not mandatory, but it's an option available to anyone that's moving from one location to another here within Woodland Pond. And the goal of the free stores is really to meet your needs and ours, in that oftentimes residents come and decide and determine, gosh, even though I downsized when I came, I still brought too much stuff. I'm not cooking nearly as much as I thought that I was going to. What am I going to do with all these books? I have way too many clothes. I don't need this many things. And so you're looking for a solution to try and downsize yourself oftentimes. And we have staff members oftentimes are just starting out, maybe don't have a lot of accumulated resources, and are so appreciative of, your old set of pots and pans. It's one more thing that they don't necessarily have to go out and procure. And it also has a huge sustainability impact, keeping things out of the waste stream. So it's really a win-win. And I will take advice on this, and we will set a weekend-long free store coming up within the next 30 days. So stay tuned on that, and then we will start collecting items from you, and we will set a free store up. Thank you for the suggestion. This is, please do not close the pool. I need it therapeutically. And there are a couple along this vein. Some are longer, some are shorter, but there are 3 in here right now that are asking if we can please consider not closing the pool during the renovations. And I'm just going to kind of nip this in the bud. Closing the pool is going to be completely unavoidable. One of the things that we have seen prevalently through the due diligence for the capital campaign, but also as we've looked at a lot of the plans, is I think that folks are really looking at what we have to offer here at Woodland Pond in terms of either it's adequate or it's inadequate. And the whole purpose of the renovation and the whole purpose of potential expansion is to make sure that we are always elevating between adequate and really desirable. So our choices are not between adequate and inadequate, because everything we're doing here basically is adequate at this point. We don't have deferred maintenance. We don't have, things that are a life safety issue. So at this point, our baseline is adequate. So what we're really trying to do is move to truly desirable. And it's for our current residents, it's for prospective residents, it's for what the industry is telling us is the trends that are going to be popular, because the reality is that Woodland Pond does not survive based on the people only in this building. We have to make sure that we are attractive, the curb appeal is there, the amenities that we're offering are keeping up with the needs and desires of our demographic of prospective residents. And so it's customary that things are going to change. In the case of the pool, this is the one location on campus that we cannot relocate the activities within our campus when we do the renovations. And I want to be very, very clear, and I'll make sure that Dave emphasizes this on Friday as well. The vast majority of the work in the pool area is happening from a desire to increase and enhance safety in a way that's aesthetically and hygienically beneficial. So what does that all mean? If you were to go to the pool room right now or into the locker rooms, you are going to see very slick tile flooring. It should have never been specified in the first place. The combination of wet feet and slick tile are a disaster in the making. And I'm actually shocked that we haven't had more serious or any real serious, knock on wood, injuries in the pool room. But the reason that we think that we have not is because we have had to place the world's most hideous mats on top of that pool decking. That do provide safety, but they're extremely challenging to clean underneath. If you looked, they're all interlocking. So you can imagine what it's like to have to move one and shift one to clean underneath. It's very, very challenging. We do it, but it creates an enormous amount of inefficiency. I don't think that any of us feels like it's quite meeting our cleanliness standards the way that we want them to, but it's the reality of the physical environment. So while the pool itself and the spa itself are not being demolished and renovated per se. The decking work is the primary emphasis of the renovation in the pool area. Yes, we're putting up some new tile on the walls. That could probably be done with the pool open, and we can talk with our construction manager about that. It's probably wildly inefficient and probably makes more sense to just do it all at once and get it done in weeks of work versus months of work. But we have no choice, and we absolutely have to level up the safety / hygienic offering related to the flooring in the pool area and the locker rooms. If you are a pool user or a locker room user and you look down when you walk, you will see that the mats are there, very unattractive. Oftentimes they're trapping things like hair and other types of debris. This really just is not where we want to be. It's not really what Woodland Pond wants to bring. We want this to be a safe, hygienic, and beautiful environment, but it is going to require that the pool be closed. We have to talk in absolutes about that. There's no alternative to this. So what we are attempting to do, and we have never done this before, we've had the pool closed for months at a time in the past because of equipment changes or when we had to repaint the pool and those kinds of things. This is not unusual at all. It's happened, I don't know, 5 or 6 times in 16 years. In the past, we have not made efforts to try and find an alternative location for your pool classes, though. And in this case, we are actively trying to do that. I am not going to make any promises, but we do have feelers out at as many of the local indoor pool operators that we can, even if it's not something that we would traditionally do. So we are looking at alternatives because there is no opportunity for us not to close the pool. It's going to have to close so that we can redeck the pool surface. There's significant amount of demolition that has to happen to pull out all the old pool tile. Not going to be safe to have the pool open, but we are looking at alternatives. And I'm hoping that 2 weeks from today, I have an update for you as to if we are going to be able to accommodate pool classes at an offsite location to which we would provide transportation. This one comes up periodically, and I will sort of reference what we've done to kick the tires on this in the past. This one says, a few residents and I were wondering if there could be a nurse on weekends in IL. What if there is a small something in need of an immediate care, perhaps the skilled nursing or in skilled nursing, assisted living, etc. So just to be clear, both in assisted living and in skilled nursing, we have nurses 24/7. That's required by law for skilled nursing, and we do it optionally as a service to you in assisted living. That's not avoidable. That's the appropriate level of care in a nursing home setting, which is what skilled nursing is. The care is provided by nurses. So we have RNs, LPNs, and in assisted living, we have LPNs 24/7. But they are attached to those individually licensed facilities. So although we look at it like it's one big place, from a state licensure perspective, each of those is distinct, and we cannot take nurses, for example, from skilled nursing into independent living. The regulations do not allow that. In terms of the amount of nurse calls that we get in independent living at any time, weekend and evening notwithstanding, the amount of emergency calls that we get is astronomically low. I was the manager on duty this past week. So in 7 days, there was not one true nurse call that came through the PERS system or through EMS. We did have somebody that needed assistance getting up off the floor, but that's not an emergency, and we have staff trained to intervene with the 2-person chair method, or in that case, our staff will call EMS. Was not an emergency by any means. Had it been an emergency, the one call that we got, one deployment that we got in 7 days, we would have called EMS just like you would if you were living in your primary residence, and they are right across the street. They get here within 5 minutes. So there is no other CCRC in New York that I am aware of, and I've asked this question many times, that has a rescue squad immediately across the street. So most independent livings, they may or may not have a wellness nurse. None that I am aware of have a wellness RN in independent living. So we're already sort of leveled up in that regard to have a registered nurse here 5 days a week. But you also have the added benefit of having the rescue squad right across the street. And there has never, knock on wood, that I can think of, been a situation where the 5 minutes that it took EMS to get here would have changed the outcome of any kind of a medical incident. We have had a couple of situations where someone, we have had people that have passed away in independent living, but by the time we've discovered them, either by the courtesy check system or a family member has called, those people are beyond help. I'm just going to be very frank about it. Our staff is very well versed in terms of what to do if you have some kind of an emergency, whether you're in skilled, assisted, garden view, or independent living. To sort of further validate this, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, we offered to do a 1-month review of calls, emergency calls here in independent living, and provide that data to the Residents Council. And I think we did 2 full weeks. There were 3 calls altogether, none of which resulted in a transport out or any further medical care. That's not including false alarms. We get false alarms all the time. We validate that by calling the person, checking. So we're talking about a very, very small number of calls. And if we were to, let's say, put a nurse in on the weekend, then that opens the can of worms to say, well, we should have someone here overnight. We just don't have the volume. If you're the writer of this and you have specific concerns, please either make time to talk to me or write me a full letter out of what your specific observations are or concerns, or do the same with the Residents Council, and we'll continue to advance the conversation. The answer is never no, except in the fact that we can't keep the pool open during renovation. But this is one that we absolutely evaluate periodically, and there just has been no justification for that at this point. This next one and says, with the original Woodland Pond IL residents aging in place, many newer IL residents who already seem in need of assistance, and the anticipated 150 new IL residents coming in the expansion, I strongly recommend that Woodland Pond build more rooms in assisted, memory care, and skilled. Asking for them to be larger, nicer, with views other than the parking lot, and that more medical and aid staff, especially at night, rather than adding so many new administrative positions, and renovate the shabby common rooms in the health center. So this is a lot to unpack. I'm going to just sort of look at this broadly for a second and just sort of pick apart 2 things here. Number one, the layout and offerings and condition of the health center, without a doubt, are within the scope of the master planning project. There is extensive planning related to opening the spaces up, enhancing the spaces, beautifying them, bringing outdoor light into common areas, making much more visibility for the nursing staff into much more beautifully appointed and designed common areas. And that is going to require that we do move some walls and do some expansion of construction. It is an extremely elaborate and extremely regulated process. And because of the depth of approval that the Department of Health needs to have over that construction and that design, there was just absolutely no way to get that work done in the first phase of construction. We have to put in extensive safety plans. We have to be able to justify every change that we want to make into 2 separate sets of regulators. So one, Department of Health for skilled nursing, and the other, the Department of Health that oversees assisted living. It's extraordinarily complicated. All of that is beginning in earnest at this point, and we are revisiting the concept the plans that we worked on about 6 months ago to make sure that some of this all makes sense. In terms of how many beds we offer in the health center in each level of care, that is not my choice. That is not your choice. That is not your niece's choice. That is 100% dictated by the New York State regulators. And what they base that on is our actuarial projections that we do not prepare. Again, I say ours, but we get independent actuarial projections. And those actuaries, we hire them to do multiple aspects of work for us every year. But they're looking at the demographics and the care that we provide in the health center. And then they are dictating to us and to New York State, based on this many independent living units and based on the demographics of Woodland Pond's residents, we believe that this bed count is adequate, or we don't, and we think we need X number of new beds. Ultimately, that conversation is almost directly between our actuaries, which are third-party independent actuaries, and the state regulators. Woodland Pond, the residents, the families really do not have a say. It all comes down to the numbers. One of the things that is sort of complicating at Woodland Pond, I guess it's complicating in a good way, but one of the things that's complicating, and we're already actively having these discussions with the actuaries and the state as we look at our plans for the health center, is our residents live exceptionally long lives in levels of care where that does not happen in other communities. And so when you take the actuarial life expectancies, they're able to tell us if you are an 88-year-old female and you're living in an assisted living facility in a CCRC, that actuarially your life expectancy in assisted living is 2.5 years. And they're specialists in their field. They're certified to do this. They're using data. The company that we use is a national company. So they're deriving their residential community demographics from the entire country. And so they're able to tell us that statistically, this person on average should live in assisted living for 2.5 years. Okay. That number of 2.5 years has not changed materially in 16 years. However, once you take into account the exceptional care that Woodland Pond provides, and you look at how long some people actually reside in our levels of care, there are outliers all over the place. I've got somebody in assisted living that's been there for 10 years. That is completely unheard of. It is certainly testament to the care that we're providing, because we're bucking the numbers sort of all over the place. And we're very proud of that, but it does obviously have to go into the equation. So once we get very close to finalizing the concept drawings, the state will be requiring us to provide those updated actuarial figures to make sure that they feel that we have an adequate number of beds. The other thing that needs to be kept in mind there is when we opened, the state determined that we had 35 too many beds in the health center. And because of that, they gave us the allowance to always bring in up to 35 outside residents into the health center. And we have done that for years. And that's a huge, huge benefit to cash flow. And to the extent that those direct admission residents are paying full market prices for their care in the health center, that helps defray the costs to our independent living or contract holding residents. So it's been a very, well-balanced circumstance for years. There are always pinch points though. And sometimes we get a little bit of a log jam, and we've always been able to work through them. We have never had a situation where someone has had to long-term be placed at another facility. We're very happy about that and work very hard to manage that. But sometimes the cards sort of stack up in a way that we may have to, relieve some of that pressure. If that was ever the case, the contract holding residents have priority to our beds. That's clear under the contract. And so then we sort of navigate using that priority in mind, and we go from there. But suffice it to say, I'm just bringing this up because I understand that it came up at the Finance Committee meeting last month. I was not there. I want to make it very clear. This is not a decision that I will make, you will make, the board will make, your family will make. This is going to be derived by the numbers based on actuarial science and the regulators at DOH. So I don't want to scapegoat them, but I don't have the authority to determine the bed count. We can make suggestions, but ultimately it's going to have to come down to those independent numbers that are reviewed by the Department of Financial Services. The last one here, I'm very concerned about Dave Roberts' comment that an outdoor pickleball court will be installed on a granite slab near the new property. The noise will travel and bother everyone in the new buildings, old building, cottages due to wind factors. Playing pickleball outside can be dangerous. Outsiders will probably use the court, causing security concerns. And a year-round portable indoor pickleball court is already being installed in the exercise room in the main building. I don't think that Woodland Pond should become Pickleball Pond. So the first thing that I'm going to say about this is Woodland Pond can only do so much to protect our residents, and we're not a nanny state. So someone could easily put a suggestion in or a rumor mill that says alcohol is dangerous. Woodland Pond should not serve alcohol. Or walking outside on a place where there's no sidewalk is dangerous. Woodland Pond should have sidewalks everywhere. To some extent, you have to be sort of the maker of your own future and the controller of your own fate. We do not want to create a situation that is choice free. You know, that's really kind of one of the major things that Woodland Pond is really proud of. I mean, I have never seen a handbook or a newsletter that has, you know, 40 interest groups sort of running the gamut of everything, and, you know, dozens of committees. We want you to have choices. We want you to be able to do as much or as little as you want. And again, as we look at what are the communities that are building now, what are they putting in, much more attention to outdoor activity is being emphasized. The design for what's going on in that space is not finalized yet. What we have discussed is a convertible tennis and pickleball court, and we currently do not have any accommodations for tennis. We're also talking about shuffleboard and a variety of other things. The other thing to keep in mind is that pickleball is changing. There are sound attenuation opportunities, both in the equipment that's used, the actual surface of the courts themselves, and different types of sound attenuation. The design team is extremely aware that sound attenuation is very important in every element of design that we're doing here within the renovation and within the expansion. We're having significant dedicated meetings related to reducing impacts of sound, for example, from North Putt Corners Road, or as we talk about things in the new PAC or in the dining rooms. There has been an enormous amount of discussion about how to make sound quality the best that it possibly can be, and also sound attenuation where there might be disturbing or troubling noise. I would encourage you, very much so, if this is you, or if you have a similar concern, please stop by and see Dave Roberts, express your concerns, let us know what's interesting to you, think about some alternatives, and we are thinking of other things too, enhanced walking paths in very nice locations and so forth. The campus is not going to become any less open to the public or any more open to the public once we have new amenities. Right now, we have decided that we do not want to be a gated community. And if you were to look out your window and you live anywhere near one of the cottages, you will see that there are non-Woodland Pond people that use the trails. That is a calculated risk that we are currently willing to take in discussion with our insurance company and in discussion with the Wallkill Valley Land Trust that holds our conservation easement. There has been some discussion over the years of if we actually want to be a truly locked down campus with security, gates and guards, and the sentiment among the residents has generally been, hell no, we don't want to live in a gated community. But I'm always willing to discuss that. That would be the only way for us to truly restrict access to the campus. And again, similar to my comment about the rumor mill and the suggestion boxes, we've been doing this for 16 years. Yes, we've had maybe one or two problematic people on the campus that came in, you know, sort of as a, I don't want to say trespasser, but not an invited guest. It has been so limited over 16 years that the alternative and the thought of having security gates, a security guard booth, all of those kinds of things just seem so not like Woodland Pond. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the pickleball being used by outside people. The ones in the village are not getting utilized consistently right now. So there's ample pickleball courts that people can go use. But I do appreciate the feedback, and I always look forward to the opportunity to talk about sort of the thought process on some of these things. And I hope that you are encouraged to leave more of these. This has been a very long address, and I'm going to wrap this up because I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I hope you guys all have a great week.